Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Hello, and welcome to the Success in Africa podcast, episode 10. My name is Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce, and I am a scholar and practitioner of leadership and organizational development. Simply put, I study what makes people successful. I have been studying this for over 3 decades with a particular focus on people in Africa. And in this podcast, I will share stories, lessons, and insights about people having success in Africa. Why this podcast? Because I am sick and tired of Africa being the poorest continent in the world. We are blessed with the greatest resource, young people. Africa will soon have the largest number of working age people in the world. And when these people achieve success, Africa's wealth will be unparalleled. Why? Because I don't know of too many Africans whose goal in life it is to die poor. Success in life is simply the achievement of a predetermined goal. So whether that goal is creating employment for 10,000 people or transforming your country into a high-income country, this podcast has been created to help you to achieve it. So if you are serious about achieving success in Africa, I want you to subscribe to this channel. If you like this video after you have watched it, please click the like button. This podcast is brought to you courtesy of BCA Leadership, the largest leadership enhancement company in Africa. If you have questions that you want me to answer after watching this video, just log on to BCA Online. The link is on the screen, and post your questions there. That is where I will respond to your questions. Today we are continuing with our 4-part episode series on examining success tips for leadership in public sector. Today's success tip is this: what got you here will not get you there. Again, what got you here will not get you there. Today's success tip is not just valid for those who are interested in succeeding as public servants, but it's frankly valid for any leader in Africa. However, I am concentrating on public sector leadership, and the person I will highlight to illustrate the importance of this nugget of wisdom is the mayor of the city of Freetown, Sierra Leone, Mrs. Yvonne Aki Sawyerr. Yvonne Aki Sawyerr became the elected mayor of the city of Freetown in Sierra Leone in 2018 and was re-elected, a rare feat for a mayor of Freetown, in 2023. Prior to serving as the mayor of Freetown, she served in public service briefly in an appointed position as the Director of Planning for the National Ebola Response Center during the Ebola crisis in 2014 and 2015. Prior to that, Mrs. Aki Sawyerr had an illustrious and glittering career in the private sector as a chartered accountant and consultant working for Arthur Andersen, and later for an investment firm called IDEA UK, in which she served as investment director. Intelligent and highly educated with degrees from the University of Sierra Leone and the London School of Economics and Political Science, and certification from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, Mrs. Aki Sawyerr could have been excused for coming into the public sector with an air of, I know it all. After all, she had been successful already in private sector in managing large projects, dealing with crisis, and mobilizing resources. However, she was aware, when appointed as the Director of Planning for the National Ebola Response Center, that what had made her successful before would not necessarily translate to success in this different theater. So she sought help. She recruited the best team available, a team of passionate and dedicated professionals who wanted to make a difference in Sierra Leone. And she leaned heavily on experienced support that was provided to her by international public health experts who had much greater experience than she did in handling outbreaks. One such mentor was Dr. Zebulon Yoti of the World Health Organization, a Ugandan public health expert from whom she learned that when it comes to dealing with public health outbreaks, you must acknowledge that public health is a social science and you have to get behavior change, and people simply do not change their behavior just because of what they hear on a loudspeaker or radio. You have to engage with them and listen to them and understand their internal factors and constraints, which are the things that will lead them to make certain choices, and then present the change in a framework that speaks to those internal concerns and needs. He would tell Yvonne, you have to sit with the people under a mango tree. It was this knowledge that Mrs. Aki Sawyerr employed to get the people of Sierra Leone during the Ebola crisis to change their habits and cultural practices. For example, washing of the dead, a practice that was fueling the spread of the Ebola virus. Under her leadership and coordination, Sierra Leone successfully eradicated the Ebola virus in November 2015, 19 months after the start of the outbreak. When Mrs. Aki Sawyerr became an elected public official in 2018 as the Mayor of Freetown, she continued to have an attitude of learning, recognizing once again that what had gotten her here would not take her there. She leaned heavily on lessons learned from other leaders who had successfully walked the path that she was walking. One such mentor of hers is the former president of Liberia, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. From President Sirleaf, Yvonne learned that effective public sector leadership occurs through engagement and consultation with patience and persistence in full measure. She learned that when dealing with citizens, people need to own the change before it can truly happen. And people simply do not own a change if nobody listens to them. So engagement, consultation, patience, and persistence are key attributes that Mrs. Aki Sawyerr learned from the former president. These skills and attributes are a world away from the fast-paced and impatient world of private sector and management consulting that Mrs. Aki Sawyerr had been successful in. She also has learned from her network of colleague mayors from other cities around the world about how to deal successfully with various stakeholders in the city, including central government and civil society. Mayor Aki Sawyerr credits all of these mentors with giving her wisdom and insight into how to successfully lead the city that she has been elected to lead, and the results are showing. Her Transform Freetown program has attracted large amounts of investor and donor funding, and there are visible improvements in the city's cleanliness, waste management, greenery, water access, as well as some not so visible improvements in areas like education within the municipal schools that are run by the Freetown City Council. While re-election in Africa is not always a sign of impact success, Mayor Aki Sawyerr's popularity among the people of Freetown is apparent to anyone who interviews the people. And in 2023, she became the first mayor of Freetown to ever be re-elected as mayor for a second term. Now, what can we learn from Mayor Aki Sawyerr, a successful finance and investment executive and director who transitioned from the fast-paced world of private sector to public sector and public office and has been able to achieve success for the city that she leads? Well, we can learn that what got you here will not get you there. We can learn that we must always keep our minds open to learning and listening when we want to be successful in public sector. We can learn that if we think we know it all, we will likely make painful mistakes that our constituents and fellow citizens will pay for dearly in the short term, and we will also pay in the long term. We can learn that humility and willingness to change are key attributes that make for successful and impactful public service. We can learn that patience and persistence are key for transformative leaders, and engagement with the people is critical to win their hearts and minds and support them along the journey of change. We can also learn that it is possible for someone who has spent the greater part of her career living and working outside of Africa to come to Africa, learn from Africans, listen to Africans, and integrate those lessons with her own experience, drive, energy, integrity, vision, and passion to create a better society for many people. So remember, if you want to become successful in public service, be open to learning. Acknowledge that what got you here may not get you there. And the people of Africa will be ready and willing to engage with you so that you can help them to make their own lives successful. This brings us to the end of our podcast today. I look forward to reading your comments and feedback about this podcast. Next week, I will share with you another important key to achieving success in Africa in the public sector. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Tell your friends about it. Together, we can transform our beloved continent. See you next week.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.